When my grandparents died, I thought they left me a fortune, but what I really inherited was a war. I clutched Grandma Laya's hand-knit scarf, running the soft yarn through my fingers, as if touching it could somehow bring her back. The funeral parlor smells like artificial flowers and lemon furniture polish. I've tucked myself into a corner chair, watching my family perform their version of grief. Mom dabs at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, letting out small, perfectly timed sobs that echo against the mahogany paneling. Every few minutes, she disappears into the restroom, and returns with fresh mascara and her phone clutched in one hand. The soft click of her camera echoes through the silence. She poses beside the gleaming casket, tears glistening under the overhead lights. "This lighting is terrible," she mutters, scrolling through the photos. Dad stands near the entrance, voice raised as he argues with the funeral director. "These charges are completely unreasonable," he snaps, fingers flying across his phone. "My stock alerts don't stop just because we're having a family situation. A family situation. That's what death is to him, an interruption between trades." My brother Cole sits slouched across the room, head bent over his phone, the blue glow reflecting off his glasses. He hasn't looked up in 20 minutes. The only emotion in the room feels like performance art, and I find myself wishing I could just step outside to breathe. I close my eyes and remember the weekends at Grandma and Grandpa's house. The smell of cinnamon rolls on Sunday mornings. Grandpa Walter teaching me how to change the oil in his first delivery truck. His calloused hands steady as he guided mine. "Hadley girl," he used to say. "Knowing how things work matters more than knowing how to buy new ones." That memory hits harder than I expect. A real tear slides down my cheek. Later that afternoon, we gather in Aaron Feldman's office, our family attorney. His office smells faintly of old books and pipe tobacco. Mom immediately claims the big leather chair in the center, posing as if she's being photographed for a magazine. Dad stands behind her with both hands gripping the chair back, projecting control. "I was thinking we could list the Harbor House immediately," Mom says, inspecting her nails. "The market's peaking," Dad agrees. "The boat should sell quickly too. And those antiques," Cole adds, still scrolling on his phone. "I've already got buyers interested in Grandpa's trucks. My startup could use the capital." Aaron clears his throat. The sound alone makes the room go still. He opens a thick folder and sets it on the desk. "As executor of Walter and Laya Monroe's estate," he begins, "I'm required to read their final wishes exactly as written." He adjusts his glasses and starts reading. Legal phrases roll out one after another until he reaches the line that changes everything. "I hereby bequeath my entire estate, valued at approximately $31.5 million, to my granddaughter, Hadley Elizabeth Martin." Silence. The kind that hums in your ears. I blink. Sure, I misheard him. "The entire estate?" Dad repeats quietly. "There must be some mistake," Mom says, her social media smile vanishing. Cole stands abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood. "What did you do?" he demands. "How did you manipulate them?" The accusation hits harder than if he'd slapped me. "I didn't," I say, my voice cracking. "I had no idea." Aaron raises a hand for quiet. "Walter and Laya anticipated your reaction," he says evenly. "They prepared this." He turns his computer screen toward us. Grandma and Grandpa appear in a pre-recorded video, sitting together on their porch swing. Their faces are tired but peaceful. "If you're watching this," Grandpa begins, "then our decision has probably come as a shock to some of you." Grandma's voice follows, soft but steady. "Gregory, Serena, Cole, we've watched how you speak about us when you think we're not listening. How you plan for our money while we're still living." I feel my throat tighten. I remember weekends spent alone with them while my parents attended networking events. Teenage me, helping Grandpa maintain his fleet of trucks. Trucks that apparently became the foundation of a shipping empire. "Hadley," Grandma says, eyes glistening, "is the only one who ever loved us for who we are. Not for what we could give her." The video ends. The room stays silent, heavy with the truth no one wants to admit. Aaron closes his laptop softly. Outside, the overcast afternoon feels even heavier. I barely make it to my car before Dad corners me. His breath smells of coffee and anger. "You'll transfer control to me tomorrow," he says in a low voice. "You can keep 12%. "Darling," Mom coos, stepping beside him. Her sympathy as fake as her tears. "This kind of money requires experience to manage. You simply aren't equipped." Cole looms behind them. "Remember what family loyalty means, Hadley. Remember who takes care of who." I grip my car keys so tightly the metal bites into my palm. "I need time to think," I manage to say. Dad's voice hardens. "Remember who owns your apartment building, Hadley. Remember who can make one phone call and leave you homeless." They turn away, perfectly united in entitlement. I stand frozen beside my car, the keys digging into my hand, the weight of $31 million pressing down on me like a burden instead of a blessing. That night, I pace my tiny studio apartment, panic crawling up my throat. Everything I own fits into this room. My life as a school counselor barely covers rent. I have no savings, no plan. When the pounding on my door starts, I nearly drop my phone. Management inspection. A gruff voice calls. Before I can respond, my phone rings. Aaron's name flashes on the screen. Hadley, he says urgently. Your parents are trying to lock you out. It's illegal, but they might do it anyway. You need to leave now. Not a mats to waiter. Not a mats to waiter, no to mats to waiter. I grab a backpack, stuffing and essentials with shaking hands. Tears blur my vision. I never imagined inheriting a fortune would make me feel more powerless than I've ever been. Before I step out, I wrap Grandma's scarf around my neck. Her voice echoes in my memory. Stand your ground, Hadley girl. Some things are worth fighting for. The next morning, rain pelts the windshield as I drive toward the harbor. Grandma and Grandpa's home sits back from the road as cedar and stone craftsman, modest despite its waterfront view. I stop in the driveway, just staring. 24 hours ago, I was nearly homeless. Now, I'm about to walk into a house worth millions that legally belongs to me. The front door opens before I reach it. Miguel Alvarez stands in the entryway, his weathered face lined with emotion. He's been the estate's caretaker for 15 years, more family than employee. Miss Hadley, he says, voice trembling slightly. Welcome home. The moment I step inside, the scent hits me, lemon oil and cinnamon. Exactly how it always smelled. Your grandmother asked me to give you this. Miguel hands me a small brass key. If things went this way, he says, leading me down the hallway to Grandpa's old study. She wanted you to have it. The key fits into the bottom drawer of his antique desk. Inside lies a weathered leather journal bound with a faded ribbon. She said you'd understand when the time came. Miguel adds, gently squeezing my shoulder before leaving me alone. I curl up in Grandpa's reading chair, journal in hand. The first entry is dated 10 years ago. Gregory came today asking for another loan. Claimed his investment was guaranteed to triple within months. When Walter hesitated, he reminded us how expensive Cole's college tuition is becoming. We wrote the check. Walter suspects we won't see that money again. My stomach twists. I flip forward. Gregory hasn't mentioned repayment. When I asked, he acted like I'd forgotten. Walter says to let it go. It's only money, he says. But it's the pattern that worries me. I turn page after page, hands trembling. Serena brought designers today to update the house. They took photos while she pointed out how tired everything looks. Later, I caught her photographing the silver service from Walter's mother. She claimed she just wanted inspiration for her anniversary party decor. The door creaks. June Porter, the housekeeper for over 20 years, enters carrying a tray of tea. Her eyes are rimmed red. You're reading Mrs. Laya's journals, she says softly. Did you know about all this? I ask. June sets the tray down. I kept records of my own, she admits. Mrs. Laya asked me to write some more apologization, and my wanted by Terrius. She disappears briefly, returning with a banker's box filled with folders. Financial documents. Loan agreements your father never repaid. Startup proposals from your brother. All defaulted. She places another thick folder on top. And these copies of property transfer documents your mother tried to get Mrs. Laya to sign 3 months before she passed. Claimed they were updates from the estate advisor. I spread everything across the desk. Thousands of dollars funneled into Dad's failed ventures. Cole's repeated requests for seed money. Mom's attempted property transfers that would have quietly moved ownership before death. They were bleeding them dry. I whisper. For years, June confirms quietly. Your grandfather always wanted to believe the best in his son. Your grandmother. She saw more clearly. I find another entry Christmas 2 years ago. Cole had too much wine at dinner. When he thought Walter and I were asleep, I overheard him tell Gregory. When the old folks die, we're set for life. Gregory laughed. Our grandson laughed about our deaths. I remember that Christmas. I'd taken double shifts to afford the train ticket home. Mom criticized my sweater while Cole bragged about his new designer watch. The doorbell rings suddenly. June glances at her watch. That'll be Mr. Shaw and Miss Park. They're not accrued. Marcus Shaw, Grandpa's financial advisor for 20 years, steps inside carrying a leather portfolio. He's followed by Evelyn Park, Grandpa's longtime business partner at Summit Freight. Hadley, Marcus says, shaking my hand. I brought the complete portfolio. You need to understand what you're protecting. Evelyn sets a stack of company records on the desk. Summit employees are reporting strange visitors asking questions about routes and contracts. She warns. Someone's digging. 1. Aaron arrives next, legal documents under his arm. We've prepared preliminary protective measures. But we need to move quickly. What see? What is not to? And when now with the ranked him. They gather around the dining table, forming a kind of circle of guardianship I never knew I'd have. Each person brings another piece of the puzzle, revealing the empire my grandparents built, and how methodically my family tried to dismantle it. My phone buzzes. Dad's voice fills the voicemail. "You have no idea what you're up against, Hadley. This can still end with everyone happy, or it can get very ugly. Your choice." A chill runs through me. While we're planning, another ring at the door interrupts us. A courier hands over a manila envelope with no return address. Inside are my childhood photos, with the faces crossed out in red marker. "This is escalating," Aaron says grimly, bagging the photos as evidence. By the next morning, everything feels heavier. The sky outside the window is the color of pewter, and rain beats steadily against the roof of Grandma and Grandpa's house. I sit at the kitchen table, staring at a half-eaten slice of toast, while the team Aaron, Marcus, Evelyn, and June goes over strategy. The coffee tastes bitter, but maybe that's just the fear sitting in my chest. "We have to move fast," Aaron says, flipping through a folder. "Your father and mother are unpredictable. They've already tried intimidation. Next comes the smear campaign." He's right. My phone buzzes again. Another text, this time from an unknown number. "You don't deserve that money. You'll see soon enough." I swallow hard. The words feel cold. Miguel walks in, wiping his hands on a towel. "Miss Hadley, the security team finished upgrading the perimeter cameras," he reports. "We've got 24-hour coverage now." "Thank you," I say, meaning it. I never thought I'd need security cameras. He gives me a small sympathetic smile. "Your grandparents were wise to prepare for this." That afternoon, the news breaks. Family contests, suspicious inheritance. The headline sits on the front page of the local paper, right under a photo of my parents. In the picture, Mom is dabbing her eyes with a tissue, the same one she used at the funeral. "Heartbroken daughter speaks out about suspected elder abuse," the caption reads. I nearly choke on my coffee. My phone buzzes again, this time a text from Aaron. "Gregory filed an emergency petition with the court. Claims Laya was mentally incompetent when she signed the will. Call me, as soon as possible." The walls of the house suddenly feel smaller. Miguel knocks and steps in holding his tablet. "Miss Hadley, you should see this." He hands it to me. On the screen, Cole's face beams from a freshly made social media page titled, "Justice for the Monroe Legacy." 400 followers. A flood of comments from people I grew up around. Neighbors, old classmates, family friends, all voicing concern. They're attacking from every direction. I whisper. "Your grandfather anticipated this," Miguel says gently. "Perhaps it's time you read his business journals." In the oak-paneled study that still smells faintly of Grandpa's pipe tobacco, Miguel unlocks a drawer and hands me a worn leather book. It's dated 1987, the year Summit Freight nearly went bankrupt. "Third bank rejected our loan application today." Grandpa's handwriting reads. "Laya says we should sell the house. I won't risk our home. When everyone says you'll fail, that's when you find your backbone. Tomorrow I'll talk to the drivers about temporary pay arrangements until we get through this." I run my hand across the page, feeling the indentations of his pen. My throat tightens. Miguel clears his throat softly. "There's more." He opens Grandma's desk drawer and pulls out a small USB drive. "Mrs. Laya installed hidden security cameras last year. She never told your parents." On Grandpa's old desktop computer, we open the files. There they are. Mom, Dad, and Cole caught the night of the funeral, methodically moving through rooms. Dad checking prices on his phone. Cole wrapping smaller items in jackets. Mom snapping photos between fake sobs. "They were stealing," I whisper. "Pretending to grieve," Miguel finishes quietly. The security system suddenly chimes, interrupting us. Miguel checks his phone and stiffens. "They're at the gates," he says. My heart slams against my ribs. Through the window, I see them. Dad's Mercedes, Mom's white Range Rover, Cole's Tesla, all idling in the driveway, engines humming in the rain. "Should I call Aaron?" Miguel asks. I take a breath, remembering Grandpa's words. "When everyone says you'll fail, that's when you find your backbone." "No," I say firmly. "I'll handle this. This isn't thing." I press the intercom button. "I'll meet you at the front steps." The gates open automatically. Rain slicks the stone walkway as I stand there, the house looming behind me like an anchor of strength. Dad strides forward first, a briefcase in hand. Mom follows with her usual camera-ready expression. Cole trails behind, looking uncomfortable but silent. "This has gone far enough," Dad announces, voice echoing like he's in a boardroom. "We're here for great-grandmother's silver set, and the Tiffany lamps to start with. Those items are specifically listed in the will as part of my inheritance," I reply. My voice is steady, though my hands tremble at my sides. "A will we're contesting," Mom interrupts smoothly. Sweetheart, you're in over your head. Let us help manage things until the courts sort this out. Cole takes a step forward, heading toward the stairs. I'll just grab my stuff from my old room while He freezes mid-step. A low hum fills the air, and red indicator lights flash along the property line. Trespassing prevention measures, I say evenly. The property is now under active surveillance. Multiple camera feeds, all backed up to a secure server. Mom gasps, clutching her chest like she's been shot. My own daughter, treating family like criminals. The crunch of gravel draws our attention. Miguel appears, holding a thick leather binder. Miss Hadley, he says loudly enough for everyone to hear. Here's the complete household inventory, with provenance documentation. June walks up behind him, her gray hair pinned back neatly. I witnessed them taking items after the service, she announces. I've provided a sworn statement to Mr. Feldman. Another car pulls in, a silver sedan. Evelyn Park steps out, followed by 5 Summit Freight employees wearing company polos. We came to show support, Evelyn says clearly. Walter and Laya built this company on integrity. We stand by their wishes. This problem in spotters fairness. For they weren't by so raiders. Mom's mouth falls open, then Aaron's BMW glides to a stop at the curb. He steps out with a folder in hand. Perfect timing, he says. I was just coming to update Hadley on the restraining order. But since everyone's here, he looks directly at my father. I can serve these papers in person. Dad's face goes crimson. From across the street, neighbors gather on their porches. Mrs. Henderson waves her phone. We called the media, she shouts. Neighborhood watch. We look after our own. A news van slows at the gate. Logo gleaming on the side. For the first time since Grandma's funeral, I see something like fear in my father's eyes. He looks around the cameras, the witnesses, the attorney, the employees. He's trapped in the daylight of truth. This isn't over, he mutters, but he's already backing away toward the car. Mom miraculously recovers from her fainting act, hustling after him. Cole lingers a moment longer. Our eyes meet, and something flickers there, regret, maybe? But he follows them anyway. That night, I stand in my grandparents' bedroom. The room looks untouched. Grandma's knitting basket still sits beside her reading chair, needles frozen mid-stitch. Grandpa's glasses rest neatly by the bed, next to a half-read mystery novel. The grief I've been holding back all week finally breaks loose. I sink onto the bed, clutching one of Grandma's knitting needles. I don't know if I can be who you thought I was, I whisper into the quiet. By morning, I'm still there. The sunrise creeps through lace curtains Grandma made herself. And somehow, amid the exhaustion, I feel steadier. Not peaceful, but grounded. When the team gathers later that morning, I sit at Grandpa's old desk, his seat now mine. We need a plan, I tell them. Not just defense. Something sustainable. Aaron slides over a stack of documents. We've filed for injunctions to stop further legal harassment. There's no mond around. My fiend investing. Monts differento. Marcus looks up from his tablet. I've secured the investment accounts with additional verification. Your father can't access anything now. Evelyn adds. I met with Summit's employees. Once they understood your commitment to keeping everyone's jobs, morale stabilized. You have their full support. I nod slowly. Then we're not just protecting what they built. We're rebuilding it. A soft knock interrupts. June walks in carrying a dusty cardboard box. Found this in the attic, she says. Labeled in your grandmother's handwriting. In case of Gregory. My heart stutters. Inside the box are decades of records, letters, loan agreements, even transcripts of phone calls. At the very bottom, wrapped in acid-free paper, lies a small leather-bound book. I lift it gently. Is this what I think it is? June nods. Mrs. Laya said you'd recognize it when the time came. It's Grandpa's original business ledger from 1962, the founding document of Summit Freight. It outlines every share, every clause, every legal safeguard, that makes challenging the will nearly impossible. For the first time since this nightmare began, I exhale without fear. A week later, I'm no longer just reacting. I'm leading. I sit at Grandpa's desk, fingers tracing the worn edges of the wood. The chair still creaks in the same spot. I lift the phone receiver. Mr. Delgado? Yes, this is Hadley Martin. I'd like to discuss expanding the profit-sharing program for Summit's drivers effective immediately. My voice doesn't shake this time. The day fills with meetings. Summit employees file in, drivers with calloused hands, mechanics with grease-stained shirts, office clerks with cautious smiles. My grandfather believed a company is only as strong as the people who build it every day. I tell them. Starting next month, every employee participates in the expanded profit-sharing program. Healthcare coverage will now include dependents. The education fund is doubling. The room erupts into applause. Real applause. Not the hollow kind Mom used to chase online. That evening, I'm on the phone with Dr. Reynolds from the foundation team. The first initiative will focus on vocational training scholarships. I explain. My grandfather believed in the dignity of skilled trades. We talk timelines, implementation, impact. For the first time, the future feels tangible. Then my phone buzzes again. A message from Aaron. Gregory contacted 3 major clients directly. Claimed there are family concerns about Summit's stability. I take a deep breath. Minutes later, the operations manager calls. Your mother showed up at your school, he reports. Tried to corner the principal. Said you were unstable. Principal Kovac didn't buy it. Told her she seemed more unstable than you. I can't help but laugh. Tell him I said thank you. But the laughter fades fast when Miguel appears in the doorway holding a sealed package. This just arrived by courier, he says. Inside the envelope is a thick folder labeled Evidence of Manipulation. It's filled with printed photos, me with my grandparents, annotated in red pen. Fake psychological reports, forged emails, fabricated medical assessments. But on the last page, I burst out laughing again. They accidentally included their own threatening emails to Grandma from last year, complete with Dad's signature and legal threats when she refused to transfer property. They're getting desperate, Aaron says when I call him. Good. I reply. That means we're winning. The morning of the Chamber of Commerce luncheon dawns bright and deceptively peaceful. Sunlight filters through the trees, scattering gold across the driveway as Evelyn's car pulls up to the house. You ready? She asks, stepping out, crisp and calm as always. I smooth down my blazer and nod, though my stomach is in knots. As ready as I'll ever be. Marcus emerges from his car next, adjusting his tie. Remember, stay calm no matter what. Your father's planning a spectacle, not a discussion. He doesn't have to say it twice. I know exactly what Dad's capable of when an audience is watching. Inside, Aaron hands me a slim folder. Press release draft. Just in case they try to twist the story afterward. I take it, but the thought of more public drama makes my pulse race. I'm a school counselor, not a CEO, not a strategist. But this isn't just business anymore, it's survival. The country club parking lot is already packed when we arrive. Expensive cars line the entrance, their polished chrome gleaming under the sunday. I spot Dad's Mercedes near the front. Figures. He probably arrived early to work the room. As we walk inside, the atmosphere changes. Conversations dim. Eyes turn. Some are sympathetic. Others are curious, waiting for a show. Gregory Martin loves an audience, and this time, he's center stage. There she is, he announces as soon as he spots me. His voice carries, just loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. The girl who's tearing our family apart. The one who destroyed our legacy. Every muscle in my body tenses. He continues, loud and polished like a man who's practiced his outrage. Walter would be ashamed of what you've done to Summit Freight, Hadley. Before I can respond, a clear voice cuts through the tension. Actually, Gregory, says Chamber President Jack Wilson, rising from his seat and tapping a glass for attention. We're here today to honor Summit Freight for 40 years of business integrity and community service. The room goes silent. Jack smiles warmly at me. Walter Monroe established this very award decades ago, and we're honored to present it to his chosen successor, his granddaughter, Miss Hadley Martin. The applause starts slow but builds quickly. Sincere and thunderous. I blink, frozen for a heartbeat before Evelyn nudges me. Go, she whispers. I walk to the front, my knees trembling, heart pounding so loudly it almost drowns out the sound of clapping. Jack hands me a heavy crystal award engraved with Summit's logo. I stare at it for a second, trying to find my voice. When I finally speak, it's quiet but steady. My grandparents built Summit Freight on 2 foundations. I say. Excellence in service and investment in people. Their legacy isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in lives improved. There's another wave of applause. Real applause. From the corner of my eye, I catch my father's expression, the perfect mixture of disbelief and fury. Mom's smile is frozen, brittle as glass. Former drivers stand up to share memories. One tells a story of Grandpa personally delivering groceries when his wife was sick. Another talks about how Grandma paid for his daughter's books in college. Even the president of the local community college stands and announces a new vocational scholarship program funded by the Monroe Foundation. For a moment, the room glows with something my family can't fake. Genuine gratitude. Later that evening, Aaron's press release goes live. It details Summit Freight's new employee protections and profit-sharing initiatives, alongside statements from June and Miguel about my parents' treatment of my grandparents in their final years. The story spreads like wildfire. Local stations pick it up first, then regional outlets. By the next morning, the fallout begins. Gregory's longtime business partners pause their collaborations. Mom's social circle quietly drops her from every gala invite. Cole's investors pull out of his startup, citing ethical concerns. Even the country club board puts their membership under review. I scroll through the headlines. Numb. Aaron calls that afternoon. "You're winning, Hadley," he says, publicly and legally. "I don't feel like I'm winning, I admit. It just feels sad." He pauses. "That's because you're human. They forgot how to be." By the third night, the cracks start to show. My phone rings at 11:36 p.m. Mom's name flashes across the screen. I hesitate, then answer. "Hadley." She sobs, her voice thick with emotion. "This isn't what I wanted. You have to believe me." I say nothing. "Your father." She trails off, sniffling. "I never meant for things to go this far. Her words dissolve into quiet sobs. For a second, I almost feel sorry for her. Almost, but I've seen her tears before, camera ready, perfectly lit, always with an angle. "Good night, Mom," I say softly and hang up. The next morning, a text from Cole appears. "Dad's losing it. I didn't know he took loans in my name. Can we talk? Just us?" I stare at it for a long time. The urge to reply wars with the knowledge of what always happens when I let him in. Finally, I type 2 words. "Not yet." A few days later, Aaron walks into the study with a new update. "They've requested mediation," he says, setting down a file. "Gregory's lawyer wants to meet, but without Gregory present, their unity's breaking." I exhale. "So, they're turning on each other." "Exactly." He smiles faintly. "It's happening faster than I expected." That night, I sit alone on the porch swing. The same one Grandma and Grandpa sat on during summer evenings, sipping lemonade and watching the harbor lights. The sea air smells like salt and rain, and for a while, I just listen to the waves. Victory doesn't feel triumphant. It feels quiet. Lonely even. I open my journal and start to write. Victory feels hollow when it's family. But what's the alternative? To surrender the legacy they entrusted to me? To let their values be erased by greed? The breeze stirs the roses along the path. Grandma's roses, planted decades ago. I think of her voice, calm and firm. "Stand your ground, Hadley girl." Sometimes standing your ground doesn't look like winning. Sometimes it just looks like not giving in. A week later, I make the call that will change everything. Aaron picks up on the first ring. "You're sure about this?" he asks. "Yes," I say. "It's time to end it." He doesn't argue. "I'll arrange the mediation. You'll want to prepare yourself, though it's going to get ugly." "I know," I whisper. But it ends now. The final confrontation. The day of the meeting. The house feels heavy with anticipation. I set Walter's old pocket watch on the polished conference table. The steady tick fills the silence like a heartbeat. The grandfather clock in the hall chimes 10. "They're here," Miguel says from the doorway. "Ready?" Aaron asks quietly. I smooth the edge of Grandma's scarf between my fingers and nod. "As ready as I'll ever be." Miguel opens the door. Dad strides in first, confidence radiating from every step, but it falters when he sees who's already in the room. Judge Ella Carter, seated at the table. And Daniel Brooks, the retired police chief who was Grandpa's fishing buddy, standing near the window. "What is this?" Dad demands. "We agreed to a family meeting, not a public tribunal." "We agreed to mediation," I correct. "These are the mediators I selected." Mom follows him in, her professional smile flickering when she realizes this isn't her stage. Cole trails behind them, tugging nervously at his collar. For a fleeting second, our eyes meet. There's guilt there, faint but real. Mom steps toward me, arms open in false warmth. "Darling, surely we can talk privately first. Family matters should stay within the family. Family matters should involve actual family." I reply evenly. "Please sit." Dad's face darkens. "I refuse to participate in this circus." "Then you can leave," I say simply. But the truth stays. After a tense pause, he sits. Aaron slides folders across the table. "Exhibit A," he says, tapping his laptop. The TV screen on the wall lights up security footage of the night after the funeral. My parents and brother, loading paintings into Dad's SUV under the cover of darkness. Mom's hand flies to her throat. Cole flinches. "Family heirlooms we were safeguarding." Dad snaps, but his voice lacks conviction. "Exhibit B," Aaron continues. "Financial records, unpaid loans to Dad's failed ventures totaling over $4 million. Then, Exhibit C. Mom's attempted property transfers while Grandma was hospitalized. Cole's defaulted investments. Recorded phone calls plotting how they'd divide assets before Grandpa had even passed." With every revelation, Dad's jaw tightens. Mom's facade crumbles, mascara tracking down her cheeks. Cole stares at the table, shoulders hunched. Judge Carter silently takes notes. Daniel shifts closer to Dad when his breathing grows sharp and fast. Finally, Aaron opens Grandma's journal. In Leah Monroe's own words, he says, dated June 14th of last year. Gregory demanded another $100,000 today. When I reminded him of the previous unpaid loans, he suggested we wouldn't want Cole to know about certain family matters. I recognized the threat. Walter and I have decided Hadley is our only hope for preserving what we've built. Silence. You manipulated them, Dad growls finally. You turned them against us. No, I say, calm and clear. Your actions did that all on their own. I slide a document across the table. This is my offer. I say. A small trust fund for each of you, conditional upon returning all stolen items and ceasing any contact with me, Summit Freight, or the Monroe Foundation. Dad laughs bitterly. Or what? Or I press charges, I answer. For theft, elder abuse, and fraud, documented, witnessed, and recorded. His eyes burn. You've turned everyone against us. No, Dad. I say quietly. You did that yourself. The grandfather clock ticks loudly in the silence that follows. 10 minutes pass before he snatches the pen Aaron offers and scrawls his signature. When they finally stand to leave, Cole hesitates at the doorway. For a moment, I think he might stay, might choose differently, but then Dad calls his name, and he follows. The door shuts. I exhale, my whole body trembling. Aaron places a hand on my shoulder. Judge Carter nods approvingly. Daniel smiles. Walter would be proud. He says softly. Standing your ground isn't about being the loudest voice, it's about knowing when enough is enough. I touch Grandma's scarf. I never wanted their money. I whisper. I just wanted family. I know. Aaron replies. That's why they trusted you with everything. Outside, engines start. Car doors slam. And for the first time, I know they're gone for good. I'm the legacy now, not the money. The values, and some boundaries, once set, can never be crossed again. 6 months after the final confrontation, my life looks nothing like before. The court battles are over. The noise has faded. And somehow, the quiet feels louder than ever. But I've learned to live with quiet. To build inside it. Every morning, I still arrive at school by 7:30. The brass plate on my counseling office door reads, Hadley Martin Student Counselor, no executive. No beneficiary. Just counselor. And honestly, it's still the title that matters most to me. That morning, a small clipping from the local business section sits on my desk. The headline makes me smile. Summit Freight announces record profits under new employee ownership model. I trace the words with my finger. Grandpa's trucks still rumble down the highway, only now the people driving them actually own a stake in their future. 68 employees with profit shares, 68 families finally secure. That's the kind of legacy that feels real. My assistant pokes her head into the office. Your foundation guests are here. Thanks, Sarah, I say, setting the newspaper aside. The Leah and Walter Monroe Foundation might exist on paper and in trust accounts. But today it's about to become something tangible. In the conference room, 5 students wait nervously. Clutching their folders are first scholarship recipients. They're all from different backgrounds. One works nights at a diner. Another helps his dad fix old engines in their backyard. One's a single mom juggling school and daycare. I remember being their age. Invisible. Broke. Trying to convince myself I was enough. Good morning, everyone, I say, taking a seat across from them. You've all been selected for our vocational training scholarships. That means full tuition, living stipends, and guaranteed apprenticeships. Their eyes widen. One girl bursts into tears. My grandparents believed in building things that last. I continue. Now you're part of that legacy. They laugh nervously, some wiping tears, some just staring in disbelief. I can almost feel Grandma's hand on my shoulder. Later, I drive down the familiar road to the Harbor House, the home that once felt like a battlefield. Now, it feels lighter. The air smells like salt and roses. The windows glow with evening light. I park next to Evelyn's sensible sedan, and Marcus's beat-up Volvo. Inside, the same dining table that once held stacks of legal documents, now hosts a celebration. June sets out Laya's china, while Miguel carefully arranges Walter's chess set by the window. Evelyn laughs as she pours cider. Remember our first meeting here? You could barely speak without shaking. Aaron chuckles. And now you're the woman who stared down Gregory Martin and the evening news in the same week. I smile faintly. Same house, same people, different Hadley. We toast with sparkling cider. To building, Marcus says. To rebuilding, Aaron corrects, lifting his glass. We all laugh. When the laughter fades, Evelyn shares the foundation's first big initiative. A 3D printing lab for the local community college's technical program. Leah and Walter would be proud. Miguel says quietly, his eyes misty. For the first time, I think he's right. That night, I curl up in Grandma's reading chair with my therapy journal. The pages are filled with 6 months of transformation. Early entries are full of panic, fear, guilt. But lately? Notes about gratitude, growth, recipes from June's kitchen, chess openings. Grandpa used to teach me. Even pressed flowers from the garden outside the cottage. The old cat professor, as Grandma used to call him, finally climbs into my lap. 6 months ago, he hissed every time I entered the room. Now, he just curls up and purrs. Progress comes in many forms. The next morning, a call comes in from an unfamiliar number. I almost don't answer, but something makes me pick up. Hadley Martin speaking. Miss Martin, a polite voice says, "This is Barbara with the State Business Registry. I'm calling to inform you that Gregory Martin's company Gem Logistics has officially filed for bankruptcy." My breath catches. Oh, I thank her, hang up, and stare at the phone. It's strange. For years, I dreamed of this kind of justice. Now that it's here, I just feel tired. 3 hours later, another email lands in my inbox. From Mom. Subject: Board application submission. I open it, half expecting a trick. Inside is a formal application for a seat on the Monroe Foundation's board of directors. My mouth actually falls open. Before I can process it, another text comes in. Cole. Hey. New startup. This one's different. Thought you might want in. I stare at both messages, disbelief morphing into a hollow laugh. The pattern never ends. My reply to both is the same: polite, firm, final. A few weeks later, my 30th birthday sneaks up on me. Evelyn, Marcus, June, Miguel, and Aaron surprise me with a small gathering at the cottage. No extravagant gifts, just love. Marcus gives me a vintage edition of my favorite book. June brings a basket of seeds from Grandma's garden. Miguel gifts me a handmade scarf in the same soft yarn as the one Grandma knitted years ago. Evelyn raises her glass to choosing your family by their actions, not their blood. We all nod quietly. Aaron updates us on the legal front. Everything is now permanently protected under the Monroe Foundation Trust. Marcus shares that Summit's community initiatives have doubled employee retention. When the conversation shifts to laughter again, I glance around the room. These people aren't just allies anymore. They're family. The kind my grandparents would have wanted for me. The following Tuesday, a sophomore student sits in my office, eyes downcast. They say I owe them, she whispers. That everything they've done for me means I have to pay them back. Even when it hurts. Her words hit like a punch. I know that feeling, the guilt, the twisted sense of debt disguised as love. I hand her a folder I've prepared for students like her. Therapy options, legal resources, boundary setting worksheets. Your worth isn't measured by what you give them. I tell her softly. You don't owe them your peace to prove your love. She nods, tears welling. Thank you, Miss Martin. As she leaves, I sit back and breathe deeply. Sometimes helping someone else heal is what heals you, too. That weekend, I visit the Harbor House garden at sunset. The roses are in full bloom, their petals catching the last light of day. Along the slope, a small grove of new trees stands, a tree for each scholarship recipient. At the base of the bench nearby, a small bronze plaque gleams. Legacy lives through Love Laya and Walter Monroe. I trace the engraved letters with my fingertips, the cool metal grounding me in the moment. I open Grandma's journal to its last blank pages and begin writing my own entries. Today, the roses bloomed early. Maybe because love still lingers here. Maybe because the right kind of roots never die. As I write, the house behind me glows in the twilight. The same home that once held conflict, now holds warmth, laughter, purpose, and in that quiet, I finally understand what my grandparents meant by standing your ground. It was never about power or control. It was about protecting what mattered: integrity, kindness, love, and never letting the wrong hands redefine it. Later that night, after everyone's gone, I stand by the window of the study. The moonlight glints off Grandpa's old ledger still displayed under glass on the bookshelf. The founding document of Summit Freight. The starting line of everything. And now, maybe, the proof that endings don't have to destroy what came before. Somewhere, I imagine Grandma, smiling that small, knowing smile she always had when she was proud but didn't want to say it out loud. I whisper into the quiet. I kept my promise. Outside, the wind rustles the garden, carrying the scent of roses through the window. For the first time since their funeral, the house feels whole again, and so do I. A month after the Foundation's first scholarship ceremony, I'm back in my office, thinking life might finally return to normal, or at least, my version of normal. Coffee that's always going cold. Students dropping by between classes. The quiet hum of the old AC unit that rattles like it's held together by prayer and duct tape. But peace, it turns out, doesn't last long when people smell a story. That morning, my inbox explodes. Subject lines like, exclusive interview request, Monroe heiress. Human interest story. Local counselor inherits $31 million. National spotlight. The teacher who stood up to her family. Apparently, some national outlet picked up the Chamber of Commerce footage. Within hours, it was everywhere. Twitter clips, TikTok edits, YouTube commentary videos dissecting the moral billionaire family feud. Some painted me as a hero. Some called me the Ice Queen of Inheritance. Others just used me for clickbait thumbnails. The irony? I never even wanted an audience. By noon, the phone in my office won't stop ringing. Students peek through the glass door, whispering. Even the janitor gives me a knowing look as he passes by with his mop. Finally, I call Aaron. Please tell me you can make this stop. I say. He sighs. You're trending on 3 platforms, Hadley. Nobody can make that stop. But we can manage it. Manage it how? Control the narrative before someone else does. Choose a single interview, one that tells your story honestly, and refuse everything else. I hesitate. I don't want fame, Aaron. You're not chasing fame, he replies. You're protecting your truth. The world's going to tell this story either way. It might as well be in your voice. That night, I scroll through the comments under one of the viral clips. She's what real wealth looks like character. Bet she's just acting. No one turns down that kind of power without a motive. Imagine your family hating you for having integrity. I close the laptop. My heart aches in that old familiar way, the one that comes from being seen and misunderstood at the same time. Miguel knocks on the open door. There's a car waiting for you outside, he says. I frown. I didn't order anything. It's from the network, he says. The producer from Morning View. They'd like to speak with you tonight. I exhale slowly. Already? Miguel shrugs. They move fast, Miss Hadley. The studio lights are too bright. That's the first thing I notice. The second thing is the host's smile, perfectly symmetrical, perfectly rehearsed. So, Hadley, she says, crossing her legs just so. You inherited $31.5 million from your grandparents, and then stood up to your own family to keep it. Tell us, what was going through your mind that day? I resist the urge to laugh. What wasn't going through my mind that day? I was scared, I admit. But I also knew. Silence lets the wrong story win. The host nods, eyes bright. And what did your grandparents mean to you? They taught me that love and integrity are the only inheritance that matter. I say simply. Money disappears. Character doesn't. For a second, the studio goes quiet. Real quiet. Then the host smiles again, softer this time. That's beautifully said. The segment airs the next morning. By noon, it's the #1 trending interview on YouTube. I get messages from strangers all over the world. A single mom from Texas writes, "You gave me hope that I can break my family's cycle too." A truck driver from Ohio emails, "My company just started profit sharing after I sent them your story." Every message feels like a little echo of my grandparents' legacy rippling outward in ways I never expected. Aaron calls that afternoon. Told you. You just changed the narrative. I smile faintly. No. I say. They did. I just told it out loud, but not everyone is cheering. 2 days later, Cole's voice message lands in my inbox. Congrats on your fame, sis. You always wanted attention, you just learned how to get it better than the rest of us. Their argument of upptäckte me. I delete it without listening to the rest. Then another arrives. Mom. This time, Hadley, please call me. You're making things worse for everyone. People are talking. They're saying we're monsters. I almost reply almost, but I don't, because some people only feel sorry when they lose control of the narrative. The following week, my students start jokingly calling me Miss Viral. I pretend to roll my eyes, but their laughter warms the room. One of them asks, "So, like, are you rich now?" I laugh. "Depends what you think rich means." He grins. "You got a yacht?" "Not even a canoe." The class bursts out laughing, and for a moment, the weight of all the attention feels lighter. That night, I drive to the cottage. The air smells like salt water and wood smoke from a nearby chimney. Inside, the lights glow soft against the old wood paneling. The kind of light that doesn't demand attention, it just exists quietly, beautifully. I light a candle by Grandma's framed photo on the mantel. "You'd laugh at all this, wouldn't you?" I whisper. "Your granddaughter trending." No, the candle flickers. And for a second, I almost hear her voice. "Stay humble, Hadley girl. The world loves noise. But love, real love, whispers." A week later, Summit Freight hosts its first full-scale employee assembly under the new ownership model. Hundreds of people fill the renovated warehouse, the air thick with energy. Banners hang from the ceiling that read, "Built on integrity, driven by people." Evelyn stands beside me at the podium, smiling proudly. When I step forward to speak, the applause rolls through the space like thunder. Summit Freight began with 2 people and 1 truck, I say. My grandparents believed that hard work and decency could build something lasting, and today, we prove them right. Fact. I glance toward the front row drivers. Mechanics, Dispatchers' faces worn by labor but lit with pride. This company doesn't belong to one person, I continue. It belongs to all of us who keep it moving. The room erupts again, and for once, the sound doesn't scare me. After the event, a local journalist approaches me, recorder in hand. Hadley, one quick question. What's next for you politically, philanthropically, maybe even publicly? I smile politely. Honestly, I'm just going to keep showing up to work. She laughs. That might be the most unbillionaire thing anyone's ever said. Good, I say. Let's keep it that way. And it is right to they have to the unite in the Graston like Salfire. He would be of knight of the country. That evening, I meet Aaron and Marcus at a small diner overlooking the water. The kind of place with foggy windows and pie that always tastes slightly better than it should. Marcus raises his coffee mug. To the quiet revolution. Aaron smirks. To Hadley, who managed to go viral without losing her soul. I shake my head smiling. To my grandparents who made sure I couldn't. We all laugh. On the drive home, my phone buzzes again, another number I don't recognize. For a moment, I consider ignoring it. But something makes me answer. Miss Martin? A man's voice asks. This is Detective Harris with the Gig Harbor PD. I wanted to inform you we've concluded the investigation regarding property theft after the funeral. I grip the steering wheel tighter. And, given the video evidence, the DA has decided to file charges. Gregory Martin and Serena Martin have been formally indicted for theft and attempted fraud. The words hit like cold air. For a long time I say nothing. Then quietly, thank you. When I hang up, my hands are shaking. Not from fear this time, from relief. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just signs paperwork and quietly restores what was broken. The next morning, I meet Miguel in the garden. He's pruning the rose bushes, humming softly to himself. They're pressing charges, I tell him. He pauses, wipes his hands on his apron, and gives a small nod. I suspected they would. How do you feel? I don't know, I admit. Sad, I guess. But also, free. He studies me for a long moment, then says, freedom often begins where illusion ends. I smile faintly. Did Grandma teach you that? He chuckles. No, Miss Hadley. Life did. That afternoon, I receive a letter delivered by courier, no return address. Inside, a single page. You think you've won. But families don't disappear, Hadley. Blood always finds a way. No signature, but I recognize the handwriting, Dad's. I fold the letter carefully and slip it into Grandma's old journal. Then I write beneath it, love is thicker than blood. And I've already found my family. Later that evening, Evelyn calls. You okay? Yeah, I say. Just tired. Understandable. But listen, the board voted today. They want to expand the foundation's programs statewide. Technical scholarships, community transport initiatives, small business mentorships. That's incredible. I breathe. Grandpa would have loved that. Evelyn pauses. So would you if you stopped long enough to see how far you've come. I look around the quiet house, the warm light, the tidy desk, the garden beyond the window, and realize she's right. As the months pass, the noise of fame fades again. New scandals replace mine. New headlines steal the spotlight, and that's fine. Let the noise move on. What stays are the things that matter. The sound of the trucks rumbling down the highway. The laughter of my students. The scent of roses blooming outside the window. The kind of wealth my grandparents always meant. Still, sometimes I wake in the middle of the night, heart pounding, thinking about them, wondering if they'd be proud, if they'd say I did enough. But then I remember the last line of Grandma's journal, written just weeks before she passed. Our girl will stand when the storm comes. Because we taught her how to build shelter from truth. And I know the answer. The next morning, the house feels quiet again, peaceful this time. The morning light catches the dust motes in the air, turning them to gold. I pour coffee, wrap Grandma's scarf around my neck, and step out onto the porch. The sea sparkles in the distance. The wind smells like salt and second chances. And for the first time, I don't feel like I'm surviving my grandparents' legacy. I feel like I'm living it. 6 months later, the foundation has outgrown our small office at the back of Summit Freight's old admin building. What started as 5 scholarships has become an entire network. Hundreds of applicants from across the state, community partnerships, trade schools, reaching out to replicate the model. It feels bigger than anything I ever imagined. And that's both thrilling and terrifying. The morning I sign the paperwork to open our second foundation branch in Tacoma. It's raining, the kind of cold, misty drizzle Grandma used to call thinking weather. Evelyn slides the document toward me. Once you sign, we'll officially operate statewide. I hold the pen for a moment, staring at the line where my name belongs. How did Grandpa do this every day? I murmur. Evelyn smiles. He didn't think of it as running a business. He thought of it as keeping promises. That hits something deep. I sign. And just like that, The ink turns memory into motion. A week later, we're in Tacoma in a warehouse that smells faintly of sawdust and new beginnings. The city donated the space, local volunteers painted the walls. On one side, rows of 3D printers hum softly. On the other, welding booths gleam beneath fluorescent lights. Miguel, now semi-retired but still refusing to slow down, helps hang the new sign. The Laya and Walter Monroe Vocational Center. He steps back, admiring the letters. Your grandparents would have cried. I swallow the lump in my throat. Then I won't. Someone has to keep things in focus. It is a cant of present. The ribbon cutting draws a crowd, journalists, city officials, former scholarship students, and more local families than I expected. Aaron handles the press. Evelyn greets donors. I stand beside the podium, my heart beating like it did that first day in Aaron's office when I learned about the inheritance. But this time, there's no fear. Just gratitude. 16 months ago, I begin. I thought my grandparents' legacy was measured in dollars. I was wrong. It's measured in opportunities like this, where hard work meets dignity. In the deepening to a save in them. Without apisalve and salve. Applause breaks out, camera flashes flicker. But what stays in my mind are the faces. A teenage girl clutching a welding helmet, an older man holding his grandson's hand. These are the people my grandparents built their empire for, not for prestige, but for possibility. Later, as the crowd disperses, a woman in her 60s approaches me. Her hair is gray, her jacket faded but neat. You don't know me, she says, voice trembling. But your grandmother helped me years ago. Paid for my nursing classes when I was too proud to ask anyone for help. My breath catches. She never mentioned that. The woman smiles. She wouldn't. She told me, the best kind of giving leaves no receipt. I feel tears sting my eyes. Thank you for telling me. She squeezes my hand. No, sweetheart. Thank you for keeping her alive. That night, I drive home in silence. The rain has stopped, but the roads shimmer with leftover reflections. When I pull into the driveway, the harbor lights flicker across the water like 1,000 tiny promises. I sit there for a moment, engine idling, watching the glow dance on the waves. Still keeping your promises, I whisper. And for the first time, I don't feel like I'm talking to the past, I feel like the past is still listening. A few days later, Evelyn and Marcus join me in Seattle for a foundation conference. We sit at a round table with executives, city officials, and nonprofit leaders all pitching ideas about philanthropic branding and impact storytelling. The jargon makes my head spin. During a break, a sleek young consultant slides up to me. Hadley, right? She says, offering a business card printed on thick matte paper. I'm Jenna, social strategy for Virtue Media. We could take your foundation story global. You're sitting on a viral brand. I blink. A brand. She nods enthusiastically. You're the perfect narrative, the ethical heiress. We could get you verified across platforms, brand deals with social impact sponsors. I think you're misunderstanding, I interrupt gently. I'm not selling anything. Her smile falters for half a second. Everything's a story, Hadley. You just have to decide who tells it. She walks away before I can reply. Her words linger long after she's gone. That night in my hotel room, I can't sleep. I stand by the window, looking out at the skyline glittering. Restless, loud. Everything's a story. It's strange. A year ago, I was running from attention. Now, people want to turn my life into content, for profit, for clicks, for applause. It's exactly what my parents lived for. I whisper to the reflection in the glass. Never let them turn this into a show. The next morning, Marcus knocks on my door holding coffee. You okay? He asks. Fine. Just thinking. He chuckles. That's usually a bad sign. I grin faintly. Do you ever worry that good intentions get corrupted once money gets involved? He tilts his head. Always. That's why integrity has to be built into the budget. I laugh softly. That sounds like something Grandpa would have said. Probably because he did. Marcus says, smiling. Back home in Gig Harbor. Life settles again, or as close to settled as I ever get now. The foundation thrives. Summit Freight grows steadily under its new structure. But the peace doesn't last long. One afternoon, Aaron shows up at my office with that particular look lawyers get when they're about to say something I won't like. Your parents, he begins, have hired a PR firm. I blink. For what? He slides a folder across my desk. Inside are screenshots of a newly launched website. The True Monroe Story. Glossy photos. Emotional quotes. A narrative painting them as victims of inheritance manipulation. I flip through the pages in disbelief. They're still doing this? Aaron sighs. They're trying to rehabilitate their image. It's less about you now, more about saving face. But the damage could still ripple. I lean back in my chair. Let them, the truth doesn't need PR. Aaron studies me for a moment, then nods. That's exactly what Walter would have said. Still. That night, the past comes knocking, literally. There's a faint knock on the cottage door just after 10 p.m. When I open it, Cole is standing there. He looks thinner. Tired. There's no bravado this time. Just something like remorse. Can I come in? He asks. I hesitate, then step aside. He walks in slowly, glancing around like he's in a museum of lost things. You kept it all the same. He murmurs. I kept what mattered. He nods. I saw the website. Let me guess, Mom's idea? And Dad's money, he admits. They're desperate. I study him for a moment. And you? He exhales. I was stupid. I know that now. I got caught up in the chase, in the image, in being the golden son. But you actually built something. His voice cracks. I'm sorry, Hadley. For a long time, neither of us speaks. The only sound is the quiet tick of the old clock. Finally I say softly. Sorry doesn't fix everything. But it's a start. He nods, eyes glassy. I don't want their money anymore. I just want to work. Maybe with the foundation. Anything. I hesitate. Every instinct tells me to protect what I've built. But another voice, Grandma's voice, whispers, kindness isn't weakness, Hadley girl. It's stewardship. I nod slowly. We'll start with volunteer work. No pay, no titles. You earn trust, one act at a time. He looks stunned. You'd let me? I'd let you try. I correct. For the first time in years, he smiles, small, genuine, almost boyish. Over the next few weeks, Cole keeps his word. He shows up early, sorts supplies, helps students carry materials, even joins Miguel for maintenance work. The staff watches him cautiously at first, but he never complains, never cuts corners. One afternoon, Evelyn pulls me aside. He's trying, she says softly. Really trying. I glance across the workshop. Cole is teaching a student how to use a power sander, patient and careful. He's his grandfather's grandson after all. I say quietly, but peace never travels alone. At the end of the month, a journalist calls to fact-check an upcoming expose, a piece sourced by anonymous family insiders. Aaron calls immediately. We can't stop the article, but we can control our statement. Stick to facts. No emotion. I nod, though dread creeps in. I know exactly who those insiders are. Mom. Dad. When the article finally drops, it's worse than expected, full of half-truths, manipulative anecdotes, and selective photos. But buried in the middle, between their false claims, is something that changes everything. One family member declined to participate but described Miss Martin as the only one of us who remembered what our grandparents stood for. Cole. He'd spoken to them, and defended me. For a long time, I just stare at the page. Forgiveness, I realize, isn't about forgetting what people did. It's about letting who they are now matter more. That evening, Cole finds me in the garden, tending to the roses. You saw the article? He asks. I did. He nods awkwardly. They cornered me. I told them the truth. I know. Silence stretches between us. Then I hand him a pair of gloves. You can help with the pruning. He grins faintly. Still giving me the hard jobs, huh? Always, I say. It's how we learn. We work in quiet harmony as the sun sets. The scent of roses thick in the air. For the first time in years, it feels like family again. Later that night, as I write in Grandma's journal, I realize something. Legacies don't end with who inherits them. They continue through who redeems them. Maybe forgiveness is part of that inheritance too. By spring, the foundation's name is everywhere. Not in the tabloid kind of way, in the quiet, respectable way that makes people whisper, they're doing something real. Newspapers run features about the students we've helped. Local networks air stories about graduates landing stable jobs, starting small businesses, giving back. It's everything my grandparents wanted. But success has a scent, and sometimes, it attracts the wrong kind of attention. It starts with an email. Subject: Strategic Partnership Opportunity, Elevate Global. The sender, Ryan Caldwell, introduces himself as a senior director at one of the biggest corporate foundations in the country. We've been following your work with the Monroe Foundation, and believe there's potential for collaboration on a national scale. I read the message twice. Collaboration. National scale. The kind of words that sound noble until you realize they often come with fine print. Still, I agree to meet. The Elevate Global headquarters sits in downtown Seattle, all glass walls and polished marble floors that make you feel small the second you walk in. Ryan greets me with a smile that's equal parts charm and calculation. Hadley, it's an honor. You're changing the landscape of community investment. He gestures for me to sit, sliding a glossy folder across the table. Inside are charts, graphs, and projections that sparkle with possibility expansion to 15 states, online training programs, Even international pilots. It's impressive. Maybe too impressive. What's the catch? I ask. He laughs lightly. Catch? No catch. Just synergy. Every one of the craze, and debated no one. I raise an eyebrow. Meaning? Meaning we handle the logistics, branding, and outreach. You'd be the public face. The Monroe Foundation becomes our social impact division. There it is. The fine print behind the sparkle. So you'd absorb us. Partnership. He corrects smoothly. Your name stays on the door, but our systems would scale your reach exponentially. I close the folder. You're offering growth at the cost of control. He leans forward, voice soft. Isn't that worth it if you help millions instead of thousands? The way he says it makes me feel like saying no would make me selfish, which is how people like him win. That night, I can't sleep. I sit by the window, rain streaking down the glass, staring at the city lights. Aaron's words echo in my head. Every empire has to decide if it serves its mission, or its expansion. I think of my grandparents, two people who built an empire from the back of a delivery truck. Never once selling their integrity for growth. But I also think about the kids on the waiting list. The ones we still can't help because the funds only stretch so far. I whisper into the dark. Would you have said yes, Grandpa? The wind outside doesn't answer. The next morning, I bring it to the team. Evelyn flips through the proposal, her brow furrowed. They're promising scale, but look at these clauses. They'd own every program name and curriculum. Why? Marcus whistles. That's not partnership. That's acquisition. Aaron nods. They'd effectively control your message, funding, and public statements. One PR scandal, and they'd rebrand you out of existence. I sigh. They're offering everything we dreamed of except freedom. Miguel, quietly polishing the brass plaque by the door, speaks up. Freedom is part of what you're giving those students, isn't it? We all go silent. He sets down the cloth and looks at me. Then don't sell them the kind of freedom you wouldn't keep for yourself. Well, 2 days later, I meet Ryan again, this time in a cafe, not a skyscraper, no assistants, no contracts, just coffee between us. I appreciate your offer, I begin. But we're declining. He smiles like he saw it coming. I expected hesitation. That's why I came prepared. He slides another folder across the table, this one thinner, sharper. Hadley, he says, you're sitting on something powerful. But running it alone limits impact. You could be the face of a national movement. I shake my head. I'm not interested in being a face. I'm interested in doing the work. His smile fades slightly. Don't be naive. Work without scale dies in obscurity. In this parade, I meet his gaze. Then I'd rather be obscure with integrity than visible without it. He leans back, studying me. That's noble. But expensive. I stand. Integrity usually is. When I tell the team, they cheer. Evelyn grins. You sound more like your grandmother every day. Aaron adds. And just so you know, that refusal will probably double your credibility. The press loves a moral stand. I laugh. I didn't do it for the press. Exactly, he says. That's why it works. But Elevate Global doesn't give up quietly. Within a month, they launch a nearly identical initiative, different name, same concept. The first press release even quotes Ryan saying, integrity means knowing when to lead and when to partner. It's a jab, thinly veiled. And yet, part of me can't help but smile. Because imitation, even corporate imitation, means we did something worth copying. One evening, I visit the Tacoma Center unannounced. The sound of welding sparks and laughter fills the air. A student named Jamie runs up, grease on her hands. Miss Martin, we just finished our first community project, built ramps for the local library. I grin. That's amazing. She shrugs modestly. We figured access should be for everyone. Thank you makes in like it of comment. That single sentence makes the months of stress vanish. Access should be for everyone. That's it. That's the mission. No slogans. No corporate partnerships. Just people helping people. The next day, Cole finds me in the office. He looks tired but grounded, a better kind of tired. Words out about your big no, he says, dropping into the chair across from me. The business blogs are calling you, the woman who refused millions. I groan. Of course they are. He chuckles. You know what Dad would have said? What? He straightens, adopting that same puffed up tone Dad always had. Never reject an offer unless you're holding a better one. And facts are. I laugh, shaking my head. Then I guess I am. Cole smiles. Yeah, a better life. Over the next few weeks, the foundation explodes with support. Donations pour in from small towns, retired mechanics, teachers, the quiet people my grandparents used to champion. Letters arrive daily. I can't give much, but your story made me believe again. I don't have millions, but I have a truck. If you ever need deliveries, it's yours. It's humbling. No corporate sponsor could ever buy that kind of trust. A month later, we host our biggest event yet, the Builders Gala. No champagne towers, no velvet ropes, just long wooden tables, food made by local caterers, music from a student band. Every person there either built something, fixed something, or taught someone how. Evelyn calls it blue-collar elegance. I call it perfect. During the event, a scholarship recipient named Rosa takes the stage. Her hands shake as she holds the microphone. I used to think money made people powerful, she says. But then I met people who used money to make others powerful. And that's different. The room falls silent. I feel my throat tighten. That one line sums up everything my grandparents stood for, and everything I'm still trying to live up to. After the gala, when the lights dim and guests begin to leave, I stand by the open doors watching them drift into the cool night. Cole joins me quietly. You know, he says, I used to think legacy was about being remembered. Now I think it's about who keeps remembering. I glance at him, smiling. You're starting to sound like Grandpa. He grins. Guess it's contagious. We both laugh, soft and tired, like people who finally made peace with their own ghosts. Later that night, I find myself alone again in the study. Grandma's scarf rests on the chair back. Grandpa's watch ticks faintly on the desk. I open the window. The sea breeze rolls in, cool and sweet. The journal lies open where I left it. I write, today, I said no to a deal that could have changed everything except the one thing that matters most. Integrity isn't the absence of opportunity. It's the refusal to trade your purpose for it. Outside, the harbor lights shimmer, reflecting off the waves. For the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm protecting an inheritance. I feel like I'm continuing it. No one warns you that success comes with weather. Sometimes it's sunlight, warm, forgiving, easy to stand in. And sometimes, without warning, it's a storm that shakes everything you've built. For us, it started with a single phone call. It was a Tuesday morning in late October when Evelyn burst into my office, face pale. They're pulling out, she said, voice trembling. Who? The Millbank Trust. Our primary matching donor for next quarter. I froze. That's half our operational budget. More like 57%. Marcus said from behind her, clutching a spreadsheet. They cited economic uncertainty and brand realignment. Aaron joined us seconds later, phone in hand. Their lawyers are spinning it as a standard contract review, but it's pretext. They're pulling due to pressure from Elevate Global. I blinked. You mean Ryan Caldwell's company? Aaron nodded grimly. He's been lobbying quietly, framing us as a risk due to lack of scalability. I leaned back, heart pounding. So, this is retaliation. Not directly, Evelyn said, rubbing her temples. But effectively? Yes. By the end of the week, 3 more smaller donors had followed suit. The Tacoma Center's expansion froze mid-phase. The scholarship waitlist grew, and my inbox filled with emails carrying the same polite rejection. We believe your mission is admirable, but unfortunately, this isn't the right fiscal year for partnership. The polite language of abandonment. Miguel found me that evening sitting in the dark office, staring at spreadsheets that no longer added up. Bad day? He asked softly. Bad month. He stepped closer, the scent of old cologne and engine oil still clinging to him. When Walter's first company nearly went bankrupt, do you know what he did? I shook my head. He sold his car, borrowed a friend's truck, and delivered every shipment himself for 3 months. Not to save money, to prove the work was still worth doing. Not to save money. I let out a shaky breath. That sounds like him, he nodded. Maybe it's time to remind people what this work really is. Like with your. The next morning, I drove to Tacoma, no entourage, no press. Just me, my car, and a thermos of too strong coffee. When I arrived, the training floor was quiet. The instructors looked defeated. I gathered everyone, students, teachers, maintenance staff in the center of the workshop. I know things look bad, I began. But we're not closing. Not while there's work left to do. Jamie, one of the early scholarship students, frowned. But what about the funding? I smiled faintly. We'll earn it. Like my grandparents did. With our hands. They're as meaty as now. In my represents. In the Felsperdiddens. The next few days blurred into movement, organizing community fundraisers, reaching out to local businesses, launching a small crowdfunding campaign. We filmed student testimonials, built a website overnight, shared stories of lives changed, no corporate gloss, just truth. And somehow, people responded. Within a week, donations trickled in small amounts from hundreds of people. $20 here, $50 there. Notes attached saying, my father was a trucker. Or, your story reminds me of my grandmother. It wasn't millions. But it was real, and real, I'd learned, could move mountains. But then came the second hit. A whistleblower claim, anonymous, filed with the State Nonprofit Commission, accusing the Monroe Foundation of financial mismanagement and nepotism. It was ridiculous. Every expense had been audited, every process transparent, but rumors spread faster than truth. News outlets ran the story. Headlines flared. Did the ethical heiress cut corners? My phone exploded. Aaron called within the hour. We'll clear this, but it's going to take time. How bad? I asked. He sighed. Bad enough that the next board vote could go either way. I hung up, staring at my reflection in the dark window. For the first time in years, I saw the same fear I'd seen in my grandparents' eyes in that old video, the fear of losing everything you built to people who never understood why you built it. 2 nights later, Cole walked into the office after everyone had gone home. Someone's framing you, he said without preamble. I looked up from the piles of paperwork. I know. Question is who? He hesitated. I think it's Mom. I felt the air leave the room. You're sure? She called me, he said. Offered me a consulting role at her new company if I'd distance myself publicly from you. She said the foundation's reputation was collapsing anyway. Story. I sank back in my chair. Unbelievable. He swallowed hard. She's desperate. After Dad's conviction, the fines, the court costs. She's drowning. Conviction? I echoed. Cole nodded. Yeah, they finalized it last week. Dad pled guilty to fraud to avoid a longer sentence. I closed my eyes. So this is her last move. He looked at me earnestly. Let me help you stop her. I shook my head. You already did. You told the truth. He exhaled shakily. She's still my mom, Hadley. I know. I said softly. That's what makes it hurt. The investigation stretched for weeks. Every ledger, transaction, and email was scrutinized. I spent long nights at the desk, eyes burning, rechecking every figure like I could somehow will them into clarity. Evelyn and Marcus worked non-stop. Aaron handled media with surgical precision. Miguel brought me tea every evening, saying nothing, just presence, solid and steady. When the auditors finally arrived at the house, I felt strangely calm, because this time, I had nothing to hide. On the day of the hearing, the room was packed. Reporters lined the walls. Foundation staff filled the benches. The lead investigator, a stern woman with silver hair, flipped through a folder before speaking. After thorough review, we found no evidence of financial misconduct or nepotism within the Monroe Foundation. The room exhaled collectively, but she wasn't done. In fact, she continued. This foundation exemplifies transparency. We're recommending it as a benchmark model for other nonprofits in the state. Applause broke out before I could even process the words. I looked at Evelyn. She was crying. Marcus grinned. Aaron just leaned back and mouthed, "Told you." For the first time in months, I laughed. A full, unguarded laugh that felt like sunlight after endless rain. The next morning, the headlines changed. Monroe Foundation cleared integrity wins. The heiress who refused to fall. Our donation site crashed from the influx of support. The Tacoma Center reopened within a week. Even Elevate Global released a statement congratulating us. Thinly veiled damage control, but still satisfying. And yet, beneath all the celebration, I felt something else. Not pride. Not even relief. Just peace. Because I finally understood what Grandma meant when she wrote, "Shelter from truth." It wasn't about hiding from storms. It was about standing through them, knowing you built your house strong enough to stay. A few nights later, I drove down to the docks. The water was calm, reflecting the lights of the city. Cole joined me, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "So what now?" he asked. "Now?" I smiled. "We rebuild again. The right way." He took a sip, glancing at the harbor. "You think we'll ever stop paying for their mistakes?" I shook my head. "No. But maybe we can make them mean something." He nodded slowly. "You really believe people can change?" I looked at him, tired eyes, calloused hands, humility hard-earned. "Yes," I said. "I'm looking at proof." He smiled faintly. The foundation held a quiet dinner the following week. No cameras, no speeches, just the people who stayed when it got hard. Evelyn, Marcus, Aaron, June, Miguel, and the staff from both centers. When it came time for a toast, Aaron raised his glass. To the storm that didn't win. Everyone cheered softly. I looked around the room, faces lit by candlelight, laughter echoing off the walls, and realized something profound. Legacy isn't about what you leave behind. It's about who stands beside you when everything tries to fall apart. After everyone left, I stood alone in the empty hall, gazing at the plaque mounted by the door. The Laya and Walter Monroe Foundation, built to last. I ran my fingers across the engraved letters, feeling the grooves beneath my fingertips. Then I opened Grandma's journal to the last remaining blank page and wrote, "We survived the storm. Not by avoiding it, but by remembering who taught us how to stand." The ink glistened under the light. Final. Permanent. Outside, rain began again, gentle this time, almost like applause, and I let it fall. It's been 7 years since the storm. 7 years since the hearings, the headlines, The fights that nearly broke me. 7 years since I stopped surviving my grandparents' legacy and started living it. The world has moved on. As it always does. The media found new scandals. Corporations found new causes. But the foundation? It's still here. Still growing. Still real. I walk through the Tacoma Center on a crisp spring morning. Coffee in hand. The sound of saws and laughter filling the air. The walls are lined with photos not of donors or executives, but of graduates. Each one framed with a short note in their handwriting. My first paycheck. My son watching me build something. I did it. Every note feels like a heartbeat. Cole runs the operations now. He still wears grease on his hands like Grandpa did and never seems to notice. "Morning, boss," he calls out as I step inside. "Morning, foreman," I tease back. He grins, setting down a clipboard. "Big day. We've got our first national apprenticeship signing with the transport union." "I heard," I say, smiling. Grandpa would have danced in his chair. Grandpa would have complained about the paperwork first. Cole laughs. He's right. I watch him move across the room, joking with students, offering advice. He's found his rhythm here, not chasing wealth or status, just purpose. It took years, but redemption has a way of blooming slowly, like roses after winter. After the morning tour, I drive to the Harbor House, the home where it all began. It's no longer just a house, it's the foundation's heart now. Half museum, half study space. The first floor is open to the public, with photos of Walter and Leah Monroe, newspaper clippings, their first delivery truck restored and polished to a shine. Sometimes, when I stand in that entryway, I can still smell Grandma's cinnamon bread baking in the kitchen. I can almost hear Grandpa's voice from the garage, yelling for me to grab the right wrench. Some memories never fade. They just hum quietly in the background, like music you don't have to replay to remember. In the garden, the roses are in bloom again, a sea of white and blush petals swaying under the morning sunday. June, now retired but still stubbornly refusing to rest, tends them carefully. "Still bossing the flowers around, I see," I say, stepping onto the path. She chuckles. "They behave better than people." She wipes her hands on her apron and hands me a small envelope. "This came for you yesterday." The handwriting is familiar, elegant, restrained. I open it and read aloud. "Dear Hadley, you don't know me, but your story found me. I used to work under your grandfather, years ago, when Summit was still small. He once told me, 'We build to serve, not to show.' I didn't understand then. I do now. My daughter's starting one of your programs next month. Thank you for carrying their light forward. John R." My throat tightens. I fold the letter carefully, slipping it into the pocket of Grandma's old journal. "Another life changed," June says softly. "Another reason to keep going," I reply. That afternoon, the foundation hosts its annual Builders Banquet, our quiet version of a gala. The Tacoma warehouse transforms with string lights, wooden tables, and laughter that fills every corner. No celebrities. No luxury auction items, just the people who make the work matter. Miguel sits near the front, his hair fully white now, still wearing his mechanic's jacket. He raises his glass when he sees me. Beside him, Aaron tells some dramatic story, gesturing wildly with his hands while Evelyn rolls her eyes. At another table, Rosa, one of our earliest scholarship recipients, is now teaching welding full-time. She's brought her 2 kids, who sit proudly beside her. When it's time to speak, I step up to the microphone. The chatter fades. I take a breath. When my grandparents built Summit Freight, they didn't start with millions. They started with 1 truck, 2 tired hands, and a promise. Do right by people, and the rest will follow. That promise carried them through every hardship, and it carried me through mine. But here's the truth I've learned. Legacies aren't inherited. They're earned, every day, by the choices we make. I glance at the crowd, mechanics, students, volunteers, neighbors. This isn't my story. I continue. It's ours. Because legacy isn't about one family's name carved into marble. It's about what grows in the soil when greed stops pulling the roots. Applause swells, slow at first, then thunderous. I step back, blinking against the lights, and for a fleeting second, I swear I can see my grandparents standing at the edge of the crowd, smiling, proud, whole. Later that night, after the last guest leaves, I walk to the shoreline behind the house. The moon sits low over the harbor, its light rippling across the water. Cole joins me silently, handing me a small wooden box. "What's this?" He smiles. "Something the team made for you." I open it. Inside lies a silver key engraved with the initials L. M. M. On the lid, a message carved in neat block letters reads, "For the one who kept the doors open." Tears prick my eyes. "You didn't have to." "We did," Cole interrupts gently. "Because you never stopped believing in us even when we didn't deserve it. For a while, we just stand there, listening to the waves lap against the shore. Then Cole says quietly, "You think they'd be proud?" I smile through the tears. I don't think. I know. And so Clado and Metter. Years pass. The foundation expands beyond Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Northern California. Each center carries the same motto carved above its doors. Built on integrity. Driven by people. Summit Freight becomes a model for ethical ownership. Cole oversees its operations with the same grit Grandpa once had. He even restored one of Walter's old trucks and drives it to every new site opening. Sometimes, I tag along mostly to watch the look on people's faces when they realize the CEO still drives his own deliveries. Miguel finally retires for good. Evelyn and Aaron both join the board. June's grandniece takes over the garden. The world keeps moving, but the core, the soul of what we built remains. When I turn 40, the board gifts me something I never expected, a bound collection of letters, essays, and handwritten notes from hundreds of students, employees, and families touched by the foundation. One line, written in a child's handwriting, stands out. Thank you for helping my mom fix cars so she can take me to school. I close the book and press it to my chest. That's the kind of wealth no number will ever match. Sometimes, when reporters ask for advice because they still do, every now and then I tell them this. Money amplifies character. It doesn't change it. If you're kind before it, you'll build with compassion. If you're cruel, you'll just build bigger cages. They usually laugh awkwardly, not sure if it's a quote or a warning, but it's both. One evening, after another long day, I sit by the window with Grandma's journal on my lap. The pages are worn, the ink faded, but her words still breathe. At the very end, beneath her final entry, there's space for one more. I pick up my pen. To whoever finds this next, you don't know me, but if you're reading this, you've inherited more than a foundation, you've inherited a promise. Keep building it. Keep protecting it. Keep remembering that the worth of your name isn't in what it owns, but in what it shelters. Hadley E. Martin, granddaughter of Walter and Leah Monroe. I close the journal and set it gently on the shelf beside Grandpa's old ledger. The story that started with their ink ends with mine, not as a full stop, but as a comma, because legacy doesn't end. It continues in the next person brave enough to carry it forward. At dusk, I walk outside one last time. The roses shimmer under the fading light. The sea hums quietly. Somewhere in the distance, I hear the low rumble of trucks heading out from the Summit Depot, the same sound I grew up falling asleep to, the sound of work, of purpose, of lives moving forward. I tilt my head toward the sky and whisper, "We did it, Grandma. We kept your word." A soft breeze brushes past, carrying the scent of salt and roses. And just like that, I know she heard. Epilogue 5 years later. The camera pans across the foundation's latest site, a bright new vocational center in Arizona. Students in blue uniforms laugh as they lift beams, weld steel, paint walls. On one of those walls, a mural stretches from end to end, Walter and Leah Monroe's faces, surrounded by blooming roses, with a quote painted in bold white letters. Integrity isn't what you build, it's what you refuse to sell. H. E. Martin. As the frame widens, the voiceover begins. Some people inherit money. Others inherit a mess, but a few inherit a promise, and when they keep it, even when it costs them everything, that's how the world changes. Fade to black. The final text appears on screen. Number 3. Inspired by true compassion, dedicated to everyone who builds with integrity. And somewhere, beyond the screen, beyond the applause, beyond the noise, the quiet legacy of the Monroe family keeps on growing, one honest act at a time.